Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Senate are headed for a showdown over whether to confirm President Trump's nomination for the U.S. Supreme Court. The Senate Judiciary Committee approved Judge Neil Gorsuch's nomination yesterday. That means it's now up to the full Senate to vote on his confirmation. Democrats say they've got enough support for a filibuster. Republicans say they may use that so-called nuclear option to lower the number of votes needed from 60 to 51 to confirm a Supreme Court nominee to a simple majority.
I cannot support advancing this nomination.
That means the judges are going to be more ideological, not less. It means that every Senate seat is going to be a referendum on the Supreme Court.
The nuclear option would mean that whichever party controls the White House would suddenly have much more power to nominate justices from this point forward.
Joining us this morning, once again, senior political writer from the San Francisco Chronicle, Joe Garofoli. Thanks for being here.
Morning, Joe.
Do you expect them to go nuclear? And if so, what does that do to the relationships these lawmakers have built up, in many cases across the aisle?
Yeah, they will go nuclear. Gorsuch will be our next Supreme Court justice, the bottom line. But in terms of the relationships, it will continue to sour them. One of the purposes of having 60 votes, demanding 60 votes in the Senate, is the Senate's supposed to be a more deliberative body. We think about things a little more, for a little bit longer time. We like to get, if you have 60 votes, obviously the person might be a little bit more in the center of the country, and so we're going to be losing that. Now, just because they're going nuclear here, it's a rule. So if the majority wants to change that rule, they can change the rule back. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who is a Republican, chimed in, and I thought it was interesting what she said, because she stopped short of saying that she would actually vote for the nuclear option. But she argued that both parties will rue the day that led to the likely rule change. What do you think about that line from the senator there?
Yeah, well, they're ruining it now. Everyone's ruining it, but nobody's doing anything to change it. Everyone's still staying, for the most part, Collins perhaps aside, is staying in their partisan pens. Again, they can change this rule if they want to. There's going to be a lot of crying and that, but both sides have been guilty about exploiting that rule. There's both houses are.
Does it matter who the Republicans would have nominated? I mean, if it wasn't Gorsuch, because of what happened with Garland. Anyone that the Republicans put up there, do you think this would have happened where they would have filibustered?
Absolutely, and part of that is driving that is the Democratic base, and we see it in the indivisible movement, the people who are pushing the Democrats to fight everything, and so they would have fought anything, and you could have put anybody up there, and they would have tried to do the same thing. And we're going to see this, and if it's the shoes on the other foot, the Republicans would have done the same thing.
I keep reading stories and studies about people having declining faith in their lawmakers and increasing dissatisfaction with what's happening in Washington.
Right.
How does this going nuclear option affect the public's perception of Washington?
1,000% it affects it, because first of all, who can understand this stuff? We talk about it, we're political dorks, we understand this stuff. But most people are like, going nuclear, what does that mean, and why it just
kind
comes
of an
off as
name.
Yes, it's a bad name, bad branding. But it all comes off as white noise to average voters. It's just like rah 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 rah. You know, Charlie Brown's teacher. That's what it's wah 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 wah. That's what it sounds like.
That's a trombone, by the way.
I was thinking wah wah is more of a trombone.
Debating why the Democrats are even doing the filibuster if they know they're going to do the nuclear option. Do you think by doing this filibuster, does it hurt the Democrats' party's chances of obtaining future victories in the political world down the road at all?
No, it helps them. It helps them. This is all for show. You're playing to the base. You're playing, I am against Trump. Democrats are trying to see who can be the most against Trump. When it comes down for a vote, a couple people who are in tough districts, senator from South Dakota and such, are going to be, they might vote differently. But, you know, this is a show of strength now. It's, politics, a lot of it's theater.
I'm going to ask you for an educated guess. All right, so this court, if Gorsuch gets on, and he will get on from what you say, will be pretty much the way it was back before the vacancy. What happens next? Who do you think is going to go next? And that next one is going to be a bigger fight, right?
Well, exactly, and we know who it's going to be, because got to give it to Trump on this. He gave us a list of here are the 20 people I would pick.
No, who's going to go out next?
Oh, who's going to go out? So you're actually going to play God? Who's going to die?
How soon is it going to happen?
I can't go there.
That is a hard one, Joe.
I can't go there. I can't pick like who's going to die next. But I mean, there are people
or
definitely
retire. Hopefully,
I don't think retire. I think certainly the people on the left are going to go out in a stretcher because they don't want to give the president another
a lot of people are worried about it. That's why I'm asking.
Absolutely, yes. And there's certainly no shortage of people with health problems of the remaining members of the court. So, yeah, keep the ambulance standing outside the court.
Well, Joe Garofoli.
Thanks, Joe.
Always a joy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Coming up next right here in the morning.